Hello and welcome. My name is Alan, and we are back with more ideas and opinions of Albert Einstein. We'll be reading only a single section because this one's a pretty good size little piece. But it starts a section that's called About Religion. But the first piece here is called Religion and Science. And it is written expressly for the New York Times Magazine and appeared there November the 9th, 1930. The German text was published in the Berliner Tageblatt on November the 11th, 1930. So 2 days later. So let's jump into this. Everything that the human race has done and thought is concerned with the satisfaction of deeply felt needs and the assuagement of pain. One has to keep this constantly in mind if he wishes to undertake spiritual movements and their development. Feeling and belonging are the motive force behind all human endeavor and human creation. In however exalted a guise the latter may present themselves to us. Now, what are the feelings and needs that have led men to religious thought and belief in the widest sense of the words? A little consideration will suffice to show us that the most varying emotions preside over the birth of religious thought and experience. With primitive man, it is above all fear that evokes religious notions. Fear of hunger, wild beasts, sickness, death, since at this stage of existence, understanding of causal connections is usually poorly developed. The human mind creates illusory beings more or less analogous to itself, on whose wills and actions the fearful happenings depend. Thus, one tries to secure the favor of these beings by carrying out actions and offering sacrifices which, according to the tradition handed down from generation to generation, appropriate them or make them well disposed toward a mortal. In this sense, I am speaking of a religion of fear. This, though not created, is in important degree stabilized by the formation of a special priestly caste which sets itself up as a mediator between the people and the beings they fear, and erects a hegemony on this basis. In many cases, a leader or ruler or a privileged class whose position rests in other factors combines priestly functions with its secular authority in order to make the latter more secure. or the political rulers and the priestly caste make common cause in their own interests. The social impulse are another source of the crystallization of religion. Fathers and mothers are the leaders of larger human communities are mortal and fallible. The desire for guidance, love, and support prompts men to form the social or moral conception of God. This is the God of providence, who protects, disposes, rewards, and punishes. The God who, according to the limits of the believer's outlook, loves and cherishes the life of the tribe or of the human race, or even life itself. The comforter in sorrow and unsatisfied longing. He who preserves the souls of the dead. This is the social or moral conception of God. The Jewish scriptures admirably illustrate the development from the religion of fear to moral religion, a development continued in the New Testament. The religion of all civilized peoples, especially the peoples of the Orient, are primarily moral religions. The development from a religion of fear to moral religion is a great step in people's lives. And yet, that primitive religions are based entirely on fear, and the religions of civilized people purely on morality is a prejudice against which we must be on our guard. The truth is that all religions are a varying blend of both types, with this differentiation that on the higher levels of social life, the religion of morality predominates. Common to all these other types is the anthropomorphic character of their conception of God. In general, only individuals of exceptional endowments and the exceptionally high minded communities rise to any considerable extent above this level. But there is a third stage of religious experience which belongs to all of them, even though it is rarely found in a pure form. I shall call it cosmic religious feeling. It is very difficult to elucidate this feeling to anyone who is entirely without it, especially as there is no anthropomorphic conception of God corresponding to it. The individual feels the futility of human desires and aims and the sublimity of and marvelous order which reveal themselves both in nature and in the world of thought. Individual existence impresses him as a sort of prison, and he wants to experience the universe as a single significant whole. The beginnings of cosmic religious feeling already appear at an early stage of development, e.g., in many of the Psalms of David and in some of the prophets. Buddhism, as we have learned, especially from the wonderful teachings of Schopenhauer, contains a much stronger element of this. The religious geniuses of all ages have been distinguished by this kind of religious feeling, which knows no dogma and no God conceived in man's image, so that there can be no church whose central teachings are based in it. Hence, it is precisely among the heretics of every age that we find men who were filled with this highest kind of religious feeling and were in many cases regarded by their contemporaries or as atheists, sometimes also as saints. Looked at in this sight, men like Democritus, Francis of Assisi, and Spinoza are closely akin to one another. How can cosmic religious feeling be communicated from one person to another if it can give rise to no definite notion of a God and no theology? In my view, it is the most important function of art and science to awaken this feeling and keep it alive in those who are receptive to it. We thus arrive at a conception of the relations of science to religion very different from the usual one. When one views the matter historically, there is one is inclined to look upon science and religion in irreconcilable antagonists, and for a very obvious reason. The man who is thoroughly convinced of the universal operation of the law of causation cannot for a moment entertain the idea of being who interferes in the course of events, provided, of course, that he takes the hypothesis of causality really seriously. He has no use for the religion of fear and equally little for social or moral religion. A God who rewards and punishes is inconceivable to him for the simple reason that a man's actions are determined by necessity, external and internal, so that in God's eyes he cannot be responsible any more than an inanimate object is responsible for the notions it undergoes. Science has therefore been charged with undermining morality, but the charge is unjust. A man's ethical behavior should be based effectually on sympathy, education, and social ties and needs. No religious basis is necessary. Man would indeed be in a poor way if it had been to be restrained by fear of punishment and hope of reward after death. It is therefore easy to see why the churches have always fought science and persecuted its devotees. On the other hand, I maintain that the cosmic religious feeling is the strangest and noblest motive for scientific research. Only those who realize the immense efforts and, above all, the devotion without which pioneer work in theoretical science cannot be achieved are able to grasp the strength of the emotion of which alone such work, remote as it is from immediate real realities of life, can issue. What a deep conviction of the rationality of the universe, and what a yearning to understand, were it but a feeble selection of the mind revealed in this world. Kepler and Newton must have had to enable them to spend years of solitary labor in disentangling the principles of celestial mechanics. Those whose acquaintance with scientific research is derived chiefly from its practical results easily develop a completely false notion of the mentality of the men who, surrounded by a skeptical world, have shown the way to kindred spirits scattered wide through the world and the centuries. Only one who has devoted his life to similar ends can have a vivid realization of what has inspired these men and given them the strength to remain true to their purpose in spite of countless failures. It is cosmic religious feeling that gives a man such strength. A contemporary has said, not unjustly, that in this materialistic age of ours, the serious scientific workers are the only profoundly religious people. So, Einstein, in other words, he compares the acquisition of science and knowledge to uh, religious morality and a feeling of religious right. And shows how it shouldn't be fear and reward that drive who you are as a person, but seeking for a better self and world. At least that's what I kind of get out of it. Go ahead and post what you think it actually means. As always, educate thyself, think, read, study, learn. Someone tries to tell you something you have trouble believing, ask them to cite their sources. I'll see you all in the next episode. Until then, later.